Here's a quick look at the new Fallout 4 patch that just dropped today for beta. We have an implementation of scopes. We have a lot of settings for things that we used to have to tweak around in the INI are now actually in the menu system. So the game is really progressing. I like this patch a lot so far. Of course, we're going to find bugs. It is Bethesda, right? If it's not buggy, we'd have to question if we were in the Matrix or something. But let's give it a look. So we now have a couple of new settings here. We have world scale, which is nice. This is for adjusting your height. We have a couple other nice options here, such as inverted Pip-Boy map scrolling. This is a pain in the butt before. And I think there's some other options under performance. A whole new tab for us here. All these things we used to have to tweak around here. I haven't messed with any of this. I did have to delete my original custom INI files because they were causing some issues, especially with the scope implementation, which we'll get to in a second here. But it looks like you can do a lot of what you used to be able, what we were attempting to accomplish before in the actual menus, which is nice. So far I haven't seen much in the way of flickering. I've only been poking around a few minutes. This patch has dropped within the last half an hour. But yeah, so far so good. So here's our implementation for scopes. When you pull the scope up to your eye, this is a long scope on the Overseer's Guardian here. When you pull the scope up to your eye, let me get somebody to shoot at a distance. Hey, you guys. Alright, it becomes sort of like a full screen experience. If you look around, if you look far enough away from the scope, you'll break out of it. But looking down the scope, it just kind of projects a screen onto your face. Now, alright, this, on the one hand, feels kind of cheap, right? But on the other hand, if you played a game like Onward, where you have to actually line your eyes up behind the focal elements of the scope, you'll know that it's actually really quite difficult to make a scope work in VR, especially without a rifle stock, where you plug your controllers into it and have full control with both hands. Scopes are very precise, fidgety things, and this is just, you know, it's a compromise. I think they realized they had to compromise. Who knows, it could have been an engine limitation as well, but this is what we end up with. So also, while you're in the scope mode, you can hold down the grip button to slow your breath, and I believe this reduces your sensitivity. You'll see I'm quite shaky without it, because it is just tracking every little bit of motion into the scope off of one hand, which is a pain. Now we can actually shoot holding breath. So this is the long scope. We'll switch over to the... Wow, this is a very big Pip-Boy. I had this modded much smaller in the INI before. I believe that's something you can actually adjust now too, directly. Or we're always able to. This is recon scope. So you can put it over targets, and I believe it's going to give them... Well, these guys aren't hostile yet, so it won't tag them, but... kind of a cool little TV monitor mode. Nice. Let's mark all these guys with the recon scope, and then we can switch to the Overseer's Guardian and do some work. I do have a feeling that you're going to get stuck up on a melee a lot while you're running down the scope here. Let's check out V.A.T.S. I haven't messed with that at all yet. So V.A.T.S. Alright, so... Body shot. Still does the thing where the AP isn't draining at all while you're sitting here in V.A.T.S, which, you know, it is cool. You get to see your shells flying through the air and dogmeat's running into battle here. It all looks very slick, but it also feels a little silly because while you're in V.A.T.S, you're invincible. So if you're ever in trouble, you just pop V.A.T.S and watch the show. It does not look like we can get into a scope in V.A.T.S. We have to target the locations. I guess that's okay. We'll shoot at his head from over here. And it's a miss. And another shot to the head. And it's a miss. We love V.A.T.S. Let's pump a critical into it. There he is. So that is our update, guys. It's getting there. I really appreciate that they're working on it, at least. But for the time being, I think I'll stick to my explosive shotgun. So this game is completely unmodded, and I actually deleted my INI files because having INI files with the standard modifications that we've become used to was causing a lot of issues with the scopes. The scope would flatten objects out, so spherical objects would kind of become eggs looking through the scope, and that must have been some sort of setting in there. And also the targeting was offset, so if you would look through the scope, the names above the characters would appear offset, and shooting directly at the characters would not work. You would have to shoot at the name tag of the character instead. So we had screwed something up there, but that's fine. Here we are, Fallout 4 VR with scopes.